Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back with our pro tennis player and architect, John Riggio, joining us live here today from New Jersey. Well known worldwide and even especially in his community with the architectural work he does. But as a pro tennis player, still active and sharing so many amazing stories. So, John, welcome back.
Hi, Jill. How are you?
I'm great. Excited. You know, the holidays are here. It's that time of season. Even though it's rainy today, it's warm. I'm happy about that and just really excited for the holidays, to be honest. Yeah.
Yes. So the holiday is coming. Of course, I'm busy here doing my work, professional job, my architect office. And so really also remembering all those things from the past, my professional tennis playing. And I think from last time I was trying to end off with some things, but I still remember there were a few points that's good to know about my tennis and really interesting things. I think one of them that was interesting is when I was younger and they went through those player names. I had so many player names too that I was proposing to them. And one player name I remember was John Arrow. And this was
John Arrow. Sharp, fast as an arrow. I'm trying to pull back
these names originally weren't really a name that would ever change. This is a name I would keep, and I would use it, make it my legal name as an entertainment name and things like that. So John Arrow was a pretty good name. It sort of didn't really have any meaning to it, and at the top of the alphabet. So I think that was a pretty good name, and but. After submitting it to my coach, and then he called the ATP office and everything like that, I didn't go with that name. I think for some reason they thought I could try a different name, and so that was one interesting thing. At that chapter, in fact, my name was determined as Jack Racket. That was the name I was using.
I love it. And that's so awesome, Speedy Jack Rabbit. Yeah, I like that. The I get it. The put on the rabbit. Yep.
It's a racket, like Jack Racket, like a tennis racket.
Yep, but that's like a Jack Rabbit, very fast and agile. Yep.
Oh, yes, sure. Yeah, I think, the name wasn't supposed to get too obvious, but it did have idea that it was connected to tennis playing. It's a racket, Jack Racket. So that's was really the name. And also it kept the same initials. So if I autographed my initials, my name doesn't change. I just put JR right on the initials. And I found doing things like that over the years when I did autograph signings, a lot of times I would use my natural name, maybe just sign initials on there. And I think that was pretty good. So I tried to keep things a little more together. Not that it was like something funny for people. And I think that I always thought about that through the years anyway. And so that was one thing that was interesting. I think there was some interesting things about just finishing the career with Mr. Kellogg. I think one interesting thing about Mr. Kellogg was he wasn't really that experienced with sponsoring sport players. So I did have to give him some advice. I think one advice I gave him was to hire someone like an administrative coach that could help out and give him some ideas. I think what happened was previously the young Mr. Helmsley, he showed him how to get things going so he could take over the contract. And from that, I think after some tournaments were going on, he needed some additional information. So I recommended that idea. So at the time, he went and searched for some administrative coach, and he hired Paul Anacone. And Paul Anacone was an administrative coach for Pete Sampras. Pete Sampras was a player. He was an excellent tennis player. And I think I knew him, Pete Sampras, sort of like at the end of the course of his career. And he came to my court in Jericho. I played Pete Sampras. Of course, he was playing the star player, so I won the match. But at that time, Paul Anacone was his coach. So the Kellogg's, he hired Paul Anacone. And I think putting together Pete Sampras was sort of like near retirement at that point. I sort of thought the same thing, that he's like maybe someone doing the coaching near the end, not really getting the things really going. So that was pretty interesting. And I think he had him there for a little while, got some ideas. But I think one good thing was I think Paul Anacone did admit there that my playing and my playing ranking was really 250 players above the U.S. Open players. The tournaments we were playing there at Sutton Eats, they were the best in the country and in the world, and that I was really ranked much higher. And that's why my contract was much higher. So my contract, Mr. Kellogg, he put in an extra $10 million, and it evened out to 150 million, which is pretty good. And so he continued to play the contract with me. Now, what happened with Paul Anacone? Mr. Kellogg decided to change to another coach. And if I remember, he had Tony Slonick there, who was also the owner of that bubble. He owns the whole bubble on 59th Street, not only the Sutton East, but the other public areas. He helped out for a while. And I think Tony Slonick, he has a doctorate in sport education, so he's very knowledgeable and has years of experience. And he helped out a little, gave him some ideas on how to do things. And then as I played with Mr. Kellogg, it went on to 1997. And what happened was, I think he was sort of thinking about forgetting about sport business. He wasn't too sure if he wanted to do it anymore. And so during the holidays, we took a little vacation, and he invited me back in the start of 1998. So I did play turning the 1998. So I played like the first couple months. But I think Mr. Kellogg, he sort of had an idea of just forgetting about sport business. And then we were left with the same problem. So I played February, and then this sort of just ended. He sort of didn't want to do that anymore. And what happened was then my contract, in theory, was going back up for sale at $200 million. So I'm 31 years old. 1998 just turned, and but I'm still playing good. I'm still in excellent shape, still playing young and winning the tournaments. And so this sort of came to an end like that. And I ended up getting a call. Gloria Vanderbilt called me after that too, and she knew that my contract would have to go for sale. And it was uncertain if someone was going to pick up my contract at that point at 200 million. I was sort of out of phone numbers too. I didn't know who to call anymore. And so I was hoping maybe someone could pick it up. I think they could have got more years out of me. I mean, the maximum is 36 years old. I think at that time I could have played. And because I think when I switched over to just doing architect work and working out with weights and things like that.
Wow. For someone like you, my goodness, you have so much.
So
What year is this? Are we talking? Hold on. When?
That's the year 1998.
Okay. Wow. But you
So
always had the career as the backup. I mean, because you were still going to school, or did you stop school for a while you were playing?
In fact, I always kept my college work going, because what happened is I graduated in 1992, and this whole time with these tennis players, I was always working on the side for architects. In fact, the office I showed you where I had that basement, I was working in the basement of someone's office, and he had like this door on two cabinets. Another pro player worked at that exact same office. And he's a player that won the French Open one year. This is, I think, the architect that worked, he had nothing to do with tennis either. It just turned out that was somehow a location where people were working and were also playing pro tennis at the time. So I don't know, that was very interesting. But I kept my work on the side. So at that time in 1998, I already passed my board exams to become an architect. I'm still playing tennis. And then just in March of 1998 is when I received my license in New York State. So I could start my office and start, building my own office and hiring people and things like that. So that's what was happening at that time. And so I was doing the work on the side. All those years, I think for some reason, a lot of people who were involved with things like architect work, engineering, even the other professions like working as a lawyer, working in different kinds of professional jobs, like even the stockbroker jobs, things like that. A lot of the tennis players, they have those kind of professional jobs. I think some architects also not it's not architects, tennis players. They have jobs that are a little simple too. Some people have more simple jobs. They aren't really so involved with college and professional licenses and things like that. But as far as me working as the architect and playing pro tennis, it seems to have worked out okay. There might have been better things to do. In fact, one thing that was interesting is when I was playing at the Sutton East, Ms. Vanderbilt, she had her security guards there. And so I think is looking for like a side job, making side money. I was trying to see if I can get into working in their security business. And in fact, yeah, I think I started off doing some like gophers for them. I offered I could do some gophers for them, things like that. And but I think that job, it really didn't go. That job, I couldn't get into working in their office. I didn't formally apply or anything, but I didn't get into working for their office. So I think the architect work is a little more steady and consistent. I working an architect, going to college, and didn't have any problems where it didn't go ahead. So I mean that is one advantage of why doing the architect work was good. It was something that was sort of available and steady to do, and it's very hard and serious work, very tedious work to do this type of architect work, but it is there to do it. So trying to get into different jobs and then not really going ahead, that isn't really that good for you. I mean, it's can be a little difficult, and then you're left with uncertainty of how you're going to get some income on the side. So I think that's was what was happening, and so at that time also with Mr. Kellogg, my name stayed as John Strong. So the whole thing ended up with my name as John Strong. There was still a line in Japan where my name is Carlos Scipio. For some reason, since they are owner of the contract, they still know me as Carlos Scipio. But here, the name was changed for a number of years there. I think it came out to maybe 3 years as John Strong. So that's what was happening. And one interesting thing about playing tennis that was really interesting is like when I was playing those runs of tennis, you weren't allowed to really sit down. So I'd play maybe from 7:30 in the morning to like 7:30 at night at the latest, and I wasn't allowed to sit down. I only allowed to like use the toilet, maybe walk outside, get lunch or something like that. And of course, at that age, also, you really want to play the tennis. You're not really thinking too much of having to sit down or lounge out or anything like that. So, but one interesting thing was on the courts, I used to develop this thing about starting to sleep while I'm standing up. And this is the most interesting thing. So between like a tennis match, I might have to wait maybe 20 minutes. I think as the latest was like maybe an hour wait. And you get into this thing of starting to like get like a little nap standing up. I don't know. This is the strangest type of thing I developed, was able to start to like take a nap standing up. And I remember one time even at the Sutton East, since it was a brand new tennis center, I think all the different things that happened, they didn't really go through everything. But once I was sleeping and I hear this noise, and I look down all of a sudden, and there's this rat is biting on my tennis sneaker. It was so unbelievable. And of course, you know how to swat it away. And he that the rat, they had to of course get the exterminators and make sure they didn't have problems like that. So I think playing tennis, like if you just sort of need to rest for a few minutes, that's what all kinds of strange things are happening with the rats running in, and it was very interesting what was going on with that. So I think that is one interesting thing. And I think going back to some interesting things about the tennis, I think were a lot of strange things were happening. Like I said, with the tennis center, and like so many different events happened in a short time and things like that. So I think that was really interesting, and it's really started to come like more like some kind of like Animal House type of things were going on there, and I think some things were really worse than what they I was just saying some basic things, but it was really sort of funny. I think there was a lot of different things with sexual things happening there, and I think I had it described once. There was the um, manager over at a pond, and he got into a sexual problem with one of the young boy players, and that was another problem. But that also flowed over to some of the other tennis players too. So there were a couple other incidents that took place there where they had the same kind of problems going on with the players instead of the management that was watching the tennis center. And that was really, getting unbelievable. And I think all those culmination of problems, they seem to have a thing of where they wanted to sort of, they had to shut the place down. And then I think it unfortunately came at my expense, which is one problem that took place at that location. Although I wasn't really blamed for anything, of course, nothing was my fault. And so I think the only luck that happened at that point is since there was all kinds of strange things happening there, like I explained, there was a bullet hole in the window, the glass panels were broken. They had a number of sexual offenses that they had to have the police come, and people were arrested, things like that. And this sort of caused a problem. I didn't do anything wrong or anything like that. I mean, there was a lot of funny things too. Like I think one day, uh, even before the Fisher Open, I was in there and I'm wondering where is the manager because he there were some things he was working on with the signage and things like that. And I look around and I look under the entrance counter and he's passed out drunk on the floor. I mean, this was like so hilarious. And he's really working for the city, as a park manager. This really was unbelievable what was happening. I think that usually you've never heard of anything. Like if you walked into any office or anything and then someone's drunk on the floor, and this was really unbelievable. So it was sort of funny. I mean, things like that. And so I think that was really maybe that things were get so happy there. I don't know. I think he gave me so many toasts of drinking that I won that he was totally drunk by that time and he was passed out on the floor. So it was really a funny thing, and so I think that was pretty good. But that was one interesting thing that happened there, and so I think like with anything, um, they like with the tennis center, particularly at Adi Pond. I remember they were talking about like the manager having problems replacing the manager, and that's before the whole thing really just changed over. So what happened at that point? Since there were so many incidents that took place, they were going to close the doors. But just by coincidence, it turns out that's when my contract was sold. And my contract getting sold had nothing to do with the things happening at the tennis center there. It was just a natural thing that my contract was starting to go up, and I really looked like an excellent prospect to make a lot of money. And that's really what turned out over the next number of years. And but just coincidentally, at that time, the whole thing shut down. I think what happened is the guy that was the manager, unfortunately, got himself into such a problem that I was told that he was died, that he like committed suicide over this whole sexual incident he had with the younger boy player, and so that was what closed that down. And but in fact, I think they might have been a little hard on the whole situation because I don't know if one incident should really close down a whole tennis center. It seems like I think they were a little bit hard. The guy who came over there from the Parks Department, he was the assistant park commissioner in New York City, and he came down there and he was talking to me, and he was saying the same thing that they are very strict with the requirements for the manager of the tennis center. He has to have a college degree. Of course, he has to apply for the job with the city. and then they have to hire him, I think one flaw with that also was that he was given a letter that he has to move. He was supposed to relocate to one of the other tennis centers, and I think they were going to give him a review of whatever happened, and maybe he would have gotten away with whatever happened. It's his own business, but they were supposed to change the manager, and I think him staying there, maybe because he was having so much fun that things were going so good, he didn't really want to leave this whole story. And he ended up staying there. And by staying there, he got himself into more and more problems than really maybe he really needed. I don't think his problems were really that bad. And I think that was the problem. I think unfortunately the player that he had the problem with turned out to be the strangest kind of player. He was like a male vixen. I mean, he was really causing strange problems. I mean, when I was over at the other court, they had the tennis coach. That's the coach of all of the players there. He went on vacation, and when he went on vacation, they had that the same boy was doing some kind of strange vaudeville show in the building there. I don't know what was going on, but it was so crazy that and then I think when the coach came back from vacation, everything was nice and calm again. He was able to keep things together. But the moment that the coach was gone, things went so crazy from what I'm told that they couldn't believe what's going on. I don't know. That's why I was wondering, I think with the different camps of tennis players, I think some of them have different ideas of what they're doing, how they're really living. So I think, and that was something that was going on there. That's why they know when I was near the camp there at the National Tennis Center with the green building, that I was near a group of people that they might not really want to really have me near their area. I think I described the tennis center of having different groups. There was my courts, there was a tennis bubble there was a green building, there was the administrative building, there was a parking lot with most of the players would have to stay in the parking lot. So there was a very interesting thing going on there. So I think that was one interesting thing. So there was this problem with the sexual thing, that they were having a lot of different sexual problems there. And it culminated to where there were some things like the Adipan closed temporarily. And then since my contract was bought over and the tennis bubble and everything, they moved over to Sutton East and 59th Street. Everything seemed to have went right past the problem. So that was pretty good for me. So since I had nothing to do with their problems, I was able to move on. And by moving on, also I was able to move up. And I think that's what I was saying just early in the show is that my ranking went up to the highest tournaments, and my ranking was really good, went all the way up to 250 players higher than the tennis center area. So that was really good. And I think that is really the correct level for me, because when I was a junior, I already played at that level. That was really the same top tournaments that I able to advance to. And my coach, Anthony Cambria, he was always so amazed by that he was always saying that he had sponsored me with the contracts and everything with the ATP, and I turned out to be an amazing player that was able to go that high and win the tournaments and things like that. So that is really what's happening. So I was always wondering also about the thing with all their sexual things was really like maybe like a smoke screen or something, like trying to get people away from them. They were trying to do all kinds of strange things, trying to get them people to stay away from them and things like that. I think later on in that, I even had some interesting things. They were playing a little like a game of strategy with me, maybe like you consider like a mind game, where they told me to go around and talk to the guy in the coaching office. So in the tennis center, they have this little building with the door, and it has one of the senior administrative coaches there. So they wanted me to go over there and talk to this guy. And I went over there and I talked to him, and for some reason they wanted to propose this idea of me taking out a loan. Now I'm the top player. I didn't need to have pay for anything the whole time. They paid $20,000 a match. They were paying the top price for me, and but they said they wanted me to get this loan of $100,000. And I think the idea of me having to get this loan for $100,000 was obviously just like a big problem. I think at the time, the idea of the loan was really for me to give the money to support maybe hiring Bjorn Borg as my personal coach. And I didn't really need to have a personal coach at that point. I was doing pretty good. My sponsors provided me all those different functions. I think if anything, I needed a publicist and an agent, but the money to do that, there was no need for it. So they wanted this thing with me getting $100,000 loan. So the guy who was there at the administration, he was doing the same thing about this thing with them all doing strange sex things and everything, and all guys sex things. It has nothing to do with the loan. I have no need for the loan. It was a complete waste of time, and they ended up having to fire the guy. He had to leave his post, and they ended up replacing him, I think. I think at the time they were going to replace him, in fact, with like Paul Anacone, which he ended up years later coming as administrative coach to help Mr. Kellogg. So I don't know. So what was happening? So that's like some of the wild things that are going on there. So with my coaching, school, trying to put everything together, there's all these strange events going on. It's really was interesting, and so I think the whole thing with all those different wild things going on were very interesting. But I was lucky to really just play past them. My sponsors were very strong. They didn't have any problems. I think they what was happening also with those strange things was they had people always coming up to my sponsors, walking up to them, like I described the ATP worker that she got herself into big
And
problems.
I apologize, we have to wrap up. I'm sorry, we're already over. We always over talk, and I'm just so enthralled. Go ahead, finish up the thought, and then we have to go. I'm so sorry.
But there were even people going up to my sponsors and doing the strange type of thing, saying that they want all these strange things, and it was really like a ploy to cause a big controversy. Maybe the idea was also to cause me enough problems where then they had an excuse where I wasn't playing, and then they can try to win tournaments. I think it was pretty simple as that. So that was really some things that were going on.
All right.
But
John Riggio.
Yes, but otherwise I was able to get past all that. I was lucky to strive past those things. And even though they were strange, some of them were funny, but I was able to get past that, and we were lucky I was able to really not have those kind of problems that they were trying to push on everybody.
Got it. John Riggio. .com. Search for him though on Facebook, John Riggio, pro tennis player, and you can just Google his name, he'll pop up. Thank you so much, John. Sorry we gotta go. Talk next week.
Hello, my name is John Riggio. I'm the CEO of John Riggio, RA Architect, LLC. I provide architect services in the New York City metropolitan area. That includes New York City, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. My areas are specifically Long Island, the 5 boroughs of New York City, Westchester, Yonkers. In New Jersey, it is North Jersey, Central Jersey, and South Jersey. In Philadelphia, the areas are the Philadelphia metropolitan area. You can find out more information about my company at www.johnriggio.com. That's spelled JOHNRIGGIO.com. And there you will find out a description of my work. It shows a portfolio, pictures of the different job types. And I also have my contact information there. It shows my business address. From there, you can contact me and we can discuss your project. First, we will make an initial consultation. And then from there, we will then go over designing your project, and then constructing your project. So I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.